Hello, beautiful people. It's Josephina Bashout with my next video. So joyful. I've been just sharing my heart and my soul and what my journey has been like of healing myself from HPV and pre-cervical cancer, CIN 2 and 3, against all of what Western medicine said was possible, creating my own path and leaving a lifestyle of prestige and celebrity in order to heal myself, become my greatest healer, and now live an incredible lifestyle that I could have never imagined at that time 9 years ago, that I am just absolutely flourishing in, surrounded by pleasure, love, community, great health, and joy. So in today's video, I want to talk about the power of awakening to my own feminine power. Now, I say the power of awakening to my own feminine power because it was such a powerful experience that I had when I realized that I was in charge of my own life, my own destiny, by going a different route and not doing what doctors had recommended, to have parts of my body cut out, but instead of my last videos, you'll see developing a spiritual practice, finding my own way, working with an ND, going all of this alternative and holistic way to really decide and create what it is that I want. Now, things that needed to change in my life. So I had to develop a meditation practice to cope with my all the mentalness that was happening, the mentalness, like mental. Then I ended up incorporating a yogic practice. I developed a journaling practice. I also changed my diet, learned how to cook, completely did a lifestyle change in order to heal myself working with an ND, and started doing mirror work. So I started cultivating an entirely new environment for myself, an outer environment, but really with a heavy focus on changing the internal environment, for I discovered that it was the internal environment that was actually fueling and creating more of the mutated cancerous cells. So once I could really take responsibility and take charge of that, then I was able to really be on my way to healing. Now, let's cut to the point of what I want to talk about in this video, because you can listen to all of that in the previous videos. So when I started making a change and dedicating to my spiritual practice 9 years ago, I started awakening in my consciousness. What that means to me is I've started becoming more aware, more self-actualized, more self-realized, more compassionate, more forgiving, more attuned to what was feeling right in relationship and environment. My sensitivity level to food through my body's response was at an all-time high, as well as energetic sensitivity. Now, what started occurring was I started realizing that my outer environment was also having a very big impact on my inner environment. And when I started realizing, oh wow, this relationship that I'm in is really negatively impacting how I'm thinking and how I'm feeling in my internal environment. I started noticing the high demand and the high stress of the job that I was in was also really making a heavy impact in the stress level of the internal environment that I was thinking of, can I do it all? Can I have this job and this career? Do I want this job? How am I navigating my life? Am I able to put my health and my doctor's appointments and do these protocols the way that I need to in order to help heal myself properly? Or am I putting my job and my work and this fear first and foremost in front of my own health? So I started to awaken to all of the different decisions and all of the different opportunities I had to navigate myself. And what I call is my GPS, my North Star, my intuition started to really come online. And when I say come online, I mean it started to become really active in my awareness and in my body's attunement. So the navigation point started telling me, yes, this is a good thing, this feels really healthy, this feels very supportive in the environment, or warning, red flags like an engine, and this actually is feeling very unsafe or unhealthy or toxic. And this is a place where you don't want to navigate into this environment. And what I started to realize was that that was actually a feminine gift and a feminine quality that I had when I was younger, but that operating in a very high-paced masculine environment, I had been really disconnected to that feminine gift. And so I started to cultivate that, started practicing and leaning into that edge of listening to it. And what I started to realize was that there was another voice inside that I was hushing and silencing instead of empowering and turning the volume up. And it was that volume of my intuition, which I now know is my superpower. So when I started to give that voice and allow it to turn up, it started to tell me things and bring things to my consciousness and forefront that I had been feeling, but that I was maybe not having the amount of courage that I needed to act upon. And since my life every day was at the forefront of my focus, it became my mission was to be as healthy and aligned and to cultivate and create the most healthy environments for myself to thrive, knowing that victory, knowing that abundance, knowing that peace and health were on the other side. It was the most important thing. And what I realized was that the most closest environments to me, the primary partnership that I was in, this relationship was actually not serving me. I started to wake up to the fact that the partner that I was in the relationship that I was in, I was subjectifying myself to verbal abuse, to a deteriorating relationship that was also deteriorating my self-worthiness and my value. And I was putting myself in these situations time and time again. And it was butting up against the internal environment that I was creating with myself to heal myself, to feel like I was worthy, to feel like I was whole and light and enough and celebrated. And instead, every day I was stepping into a relationship dynamic unconsciously until I became conscious and aware that was fueling and polluting my internal environment. So because I realized this, I had a choice. No one was gonna save me. I had to take charge, to trust my intuition, which was a gut response, second brain gut response, and take action. And so I chose to change my external environment, first by ending that relationship, which was a very challenging thing to do, because although there was love, there was a lot more negativity. And by having the courage and claiming my own personal power gave me the strength to move into the direction of my desires, which was health, happiness, wholeness, and radiance. And so that environment, that relationship dynamic that could have been more comfortable to stay in, although it was verbally abusive and although it was unhealthy, it was very comfortable and very familiar. But again, comfortability and familiar just festers the environment that produces and that's conducive to the negativity and the toxicity, which produces the same results over and over again, which I was steering away from because it would only feed into any emotional negativity that would keep the cancerous cells active. So it came down to really choosing myself above anyone else, above the partnership, above the relationship, above that person, me choosing me and my sovereignty to be free. And an affirmation that I would play with and work with continuously is, I choose me, I am free. I choose me, I am free. I am me, I am free. I choose me, I am free. Continuously over and over and over again. So I share that with you because listening to the intuition, reclaiming that feminine gift and power as a superpower versus a weakness, by practicing listening to it and taking the steps and the action of courage, it became one of my greatest feminine gifts and superpower. And so I want to invite you, for any women that are listening, if you have a fear that by listening to your intuition or by plugging back into your feminine powers that you will be deemed weaker, I want to remind you that that is not true. Completely false. In fact, it only strengthens your gifts and your impact to take charge in your life. It brings you into authentic leadership because you are leading from your heart and you are leading from your gut, and you are truly cultivating the inner environment which will just be reflected in the outward environment. And so what I did is I took inventory of everything in my external environment that was no longer serving me or a match to my internal environment, and I made a change. I made a dramatic, radical lifestyle change. I stopped going out to bars. I stopped going out to a majority of restaurants. Didn't say that I wasn't having fun. I was still having fun as much as I could while I was healing myself. But instead I chose to watch movies or go bowling or spend time with friends or have tea parties. Things that were really nourishing and really cultivating. I sat with myself a lot. Self-nurturance became a huge key. Why? Because I was listening to what my body was asking of me and I was giving it to myself. That is how I really took charge in my life. And that is how I was so awakened to my feminine gifts and power of nurturance, of compassion, of intuition. And that is what makes women such a powerful position of life leadership. Because there's a diversity in this world that has been driven thus far by the patriarchal world of get and conquer and cutthroat and do what you need to do to survive and fear and scarcity. And if I listened to what was going on in the noise of my external environments, of what the doctors were saying, of what my job was saying or the world was saying to me, and I would have listened versus what my intuition told me that guided me down the path of escharotics and naturopathic healing, and what guided me away from this relationship after 2.5 years, and what guided me away eventually from my job, which I transferred out of because it was not conducive to me really supporting and healing myself, I would have been stuck in the same environments that created the cancerous cells and the issues in the first place. Now, again, I am taking full responsibility, and I'm not saying that it was all of these outside circumstances, these ones in particular, that created it. But I'm saying it is the collective outside external environments that contributed to my experience which manifested. And because I was choosing to believe that I was a victim of the outside circumstances, that I was a product due to the outside environment, that it shaped me, this was a result. And so, no, my intuition is saying no. My higher self, my priestess self said, no, wake up. Wake up to the power. Wake up to what I'm telling you. Wake up to the whisper in the spirit that is saying that there is a different way, but it requires courage. It requires faith. It requires truly dedicating to that spiritual practice, to that self-care practice, and really cultivating and changing the inner world and the inner environment. And so the Dalai Lama said that the Western woman will change the world one day. And I absolutely believe that, because Middle Eastern woman living in the Western world, born and raised here, what a blessing and what an honor I have. And the position of power I've been in, the resources, the education, the outlets and the platforms that I have today. I get to use these arenas through the connection of my mysticism, of my femininity, of my feminine power, and wake up and make an impact and make a difference, and now share this type of content with all of you who now have an opportunity where you are in the world and your position of power and your platform and wherever you're going through, to allow you and give you the permission and the remembrance that, hey, if I've done it, you can do it. And that, hey, you're not the only one that is contemplating, does this job serve me? Am I really unhappy at where I am? I want to leave, but I'm not sure about if I can make it successful somewhere else. I had the confidence that I used to have in myself, but I don't have the confidence anymore. Well, I want to remind you that the more that you practice listening to your intuition and that you take the path that you know that you need to take, but yet you're worried or you're fearful of taking, but you cultivate the courage enough to do that through your faith, through connection to your infinite, your higher self, your priestess self, if you're a woman, your divine self, universally, and you go and strengthen that muscle, the path will line up for you. and the path lined up for me. And when I made the jump and the transition of leaving all of the outside environment behind me of everything that I've known, and I jumped and I took the leap and I left my high-powered, high-paying job working in celebrity branding and marketing and design and development, and I leaped into the unknown, not knowing where I was going, the universe caught me and it guided me into a women's empowerment program that I had no idea existed up until 2 weeks before that moment. That I wasn't even sure if I was able to or would be ready to take that leap. And yet everything lined up for me to do it. Why? Because of my practice, because of my faith, because of my affirmation, because of all the things that I had been setting into motion, that the universe met me and aligned me into the transition. So even though I couldn't see it, it was there. And it helped me strengthen the faith of healing myself and continuing on the path. So that is my invitation and that is my share with you all, is to develop a spiritual practice, develop a self-care worship practice, and then see how that can cultivate you awakening to your own feminine power. And then once you start to hear that little whisper, listen and start to move into that direction to strengthen your feminine gifts, because they truly, truly are a gift that is needed in today's society and today's world. It won't weaken you, it will strengthen you. It will boost your confidence, and you will feel connected to the fire that lives inside of you, that will motivate you to take the steps that are needed in your life in this direction right now. Stay tuned for the next video, and I cannot wait to share more information with you. Please follow along, share this video if you feel inspired, tag it, like it, spread the love. Sending you a big, big, wet kiss, knowing that I see you, I love you, I support you. Keep going. You are powerful, and there's a woman on fire inside of you that is ready to be ignited. I see her.